All yours.
All right. Hi, Yael. Thank you so
Hey, what's
much.
up?
Thanks for joining me here on Vonvo.com today. Um, and I really want to just dive right into everything going on in Israel. Where exactly are you located? And are there any missiles falling around you right now? What exactly is going on?
I'm located in Ramat Hasharon. It's roughly 10 kilometers north of Tel Aviv. Due to the ceasefire that was conducted 3 days ago, there are no missiles being launched. Well, nowhere, especially in Ramat Hasharon. I've kind of lucked out to be in one of the safest place around. We're roughly 75 to 80 kilometers from the Gaza Strip, meaning only there's only few missiles that can actually target the area, and there were only around 5 to 6 bombings in the area. They were conducted mainly in Tel Aviv.
So are you exactly where are you in northern or central Israel? I just missed where you said
No,
exactly.
northern Tel Aviv.
Okay.
Yeah, northern 10 kilometers north of Tel Aviv.
Very cool. Got it. So past that, over the past few days, were you called back into the reserves, for the military?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
The at the beginning there were two waves of recruits. The first wave was mainly the general staff, meaning the higher ranked officers, and the second were mainly combat unit. I wasn't a combat soldier, so that was one of the reasons why I wasn't called for reserves.
Okay. Got it. And knowing that that's the case, what's really been then, your feelings, what emotions have been kind of running through you over the past week since this whole crisis kind of went down?
Well, as you might have already spoken with David Bador, I'm student at IDC, the Interdisciplinary Center in Silia, and we conducted an operation room of students. We had roughly 50 to 100 students at every given time. What we did was mainly doing, well, diplomacy work, hasbara, as we call it, mainly in order to try to reveal the real picture of what it's like to live in a constant threat for your life.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't believe that the past week was any different. I mean, for a lot of people that already went through the army service, that's something that you kind of grows on you and you become accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
I, for my, sorry?
Yeah. No. Keep going. Keep going. That's great.
Oh, okay. No problem. Myself, mainly the fact that I'm living in a rather remote area from any war zone, haven't really had to endure anything that under my civil life as a threat. Obviously, in my military service, and that was one of the reasons why I was rather calm because of that. Because after military service, you kind of grows accustomed to that missiles and bombing and red code and running to shelters. A drill that you become, well, growingly accustomed to.
So,
And I guess it kind of sums it up in a way that there's something that after a while you become accustomed, and you still, every single time there is an event and you hear a bombing and you hear there was a murdered kid or children, you see children running to shelters. It kind of like burns a hole into you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you kind of, yeah, that's it.
how old are you exactly, Yahel?
I'm 23.
You're 23. Okay.
Yeah,
And
23.
one second.
No problem.
I'm 23 years old also. So why don't you explain to people, as a 23-year-old, how living in Israel just totally disrupts your life, in terms of living just incredibly normal life. What's different about your life, in Israel?
First of all, the main issue, I have a lot of friends from the States, from Canada and from England.
Uh-huh.
I've studied from England when I was a bit younger, I was around 10 or 11. And a lot of friends from after the age of 17 or 18 go straight to college. whereas I only began my my bachelor at the age of 20, 21, almost 22.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my friends are already with a master's degrees as I'm speaking, as I'm like in my third year.
Yep.
And there's a huge difference. You begin your life a lot later, and along with it, there are a lot of things that you gain and lose in your perspective in life.
Yeah.
Part of being serving in the military is something that you growingly understand. There is a dire need for that. You're not just called in to do some housework. You're not just called in some, like general service for your community. As your army service progresses, you understand that it's not just a necessity. In a lot of ways, if people didn't do that, there are a lot of people that decide not to go to the army service. If people don't do that, if people don't fill in their job, lives are at stake, and that's something that is kind of clings onto your DNA, and it's something that's kind of leads you on as you grow up in life, and kind of alters your decisions in a lot of ways. Meaning, theoretically, I would have decided, if any boy's dream would be to become either an astronaut or to become a fireman or whatever it is, a lot of people in here are mainly focusing in diplomacy, mainly because of the fact that we feel we're in a dying need to explain where we're standing. When I say that I'm going with my friend to Tel Aviv, and a week before that there was a bombing at the same cafe, and I'm going exactly to the same place, whereas at every place in the world, either Spain, England after the bombing in the train, the Manhattan after 9/11, Manhattan after 9/11 were completely shut. I have a family, I have friends there. For almost a year after that, almost like no one managed to go out. They were completely petrified, and I totally understand that. But the fact that after less than a week after a bombing at a restaurant or a cafe, we go there still, is because we understand. Well, that's life. We gotta do what we can.
Yeah.
That's a bit of what it's like to live.
I hear exactly what you're saying. So the fact that that there was a successful ceasefire implemented, and now it's a test of time to see if it holds.
Yeah.
What, as an Israeli, what is your opinion of the ceasefire? Do you think it was the right move?
Unfortunately, no. It was a political move. I'm not going to go into the internal politics, as in, because obviously one of the reasons that Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister, decided to go on that operation is, from what I see and what I believe, is similar to it's closer as close as it becomes to the election period. It holds a great significance for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe the ceasefire in a lot of ways was compromised. The reason for that is because they went on the operation and they had certain objectives. They were looking for mainly strengthening the power balance in the area. And I believe they were completely not just unsuccessful in that, but I think that Hamas gained a lot of power after the operation. We gained no success in eliminating terror cells, and we lost lives. And I think that perhaps, even though it might have been a terrible decision and a bloodshed, if he would have decided actually to go on an operation in order to actually regain the power balance, a ground operation would have been a must. I think when Clinton came here 5 days ago, and he came as well and sent his prime minister to Gaza Strip, I think there was a political oppression, and I believe the ceasefire in a lot of ways was a political decision. I think even during Netanyahu's speech, he said, I understand there are a lot of people that feel that the operation wasn't fulfilled completely, and if necessary, we'll go back and do what we need if the ceasefire does not continue appropriately. And I'm afraid he understands that a lot of people believe it was a mistake. And there were a lot of groups and a lot of people that gathered and formed groups that's resisting that ceasefire. They believe it was uncalled for. And a lot of reserve units that were called in, 75,000 reserve soldiers that were called in and were stationed at Gaza waiting for the right time. And there were many standing there doing nothing, many being ducks under fire in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Rather sitting ducks there.
I gotcha. Totally. So why don't we talk a little bit about Hamas?
Sorry?
Why don't we talk a little bit about Hamas? You know, I hear a lot of different things that don't get really reported in the media, such as like human shielding and other things around those matters. What can you tell us about those actions that they perform?
I'll try to make it as quick as possible. I'll tell you what's the reason for that. One of my major jobs in the army service, I was serving as the General Advocate Corps. I was stationed at the Gaza Strip, and one of my jobs was humanitarian one, meaning one of our tasks was making sure that humanitarian resources are appropriately sent through the Gaza Strip and units, and there's going to be a connection with the Red Cross and the United Nations, and in a lot of ways making sure that whenever there's an operation there, as little lives as can will be at stake.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things that I saw, unfortunately, was not only the shielding of children and the use of mosques and hospitals and house and, generally everything that it could get their hands on.
Really?
I mean, this is a debate, unfortunately, that can go for hours. I have seen footage with my own eyes, unfortunately, of missiles being stationed at a basement at the General Hospital at Gaza, the biggest hospital they have in the area. They put missiles in school bus trucks.
Yeah.
That was almost surreal in a lot of ways. The problem was that a lot of organization, they try to disguise in a lot of organization. What happened was that what happened during Buferet Tzukah a lot less in this operation, that there was a positioning of missiles and rockets in UN vehicles as well.
Did you say in UN vehicles and Red Cross vehicles?
UN vehicles, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That was rather unfortunate. I think there's still footage running around, and this is the classic diplomatic war. They're trying to show their side. We're trying to show our side. It's kind of bothering in a lot of ways, because the problem is that it's always that's one of the things that I'm always saying.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the underdog.
Yep.
And when the world believes that they're the underdog, they're gonna go with them regardless of really what happens. And it's really easy to picture yourself as an underdog.
Yep.
A lot of people there, mainly because of the Hamas regime, are living a dull, poor life, awful life. Because whenever there is a humanitarian shipment coming to Gaza, the Hamas immediately seizes that, and they're selling that to the highest bidder. That's one of the problems, that there are a lot of organizations, a lot of people that are thinking, we've sent a lot of humanitarian resources to the Gaza Strip. Although there's a lot of people there, we've sent a lot of resources. And if there are people still starving, there is something that has to do with Israel starving them. And there was a huge problem, as we can already see from the West Bank. The West Bank will still believe that it's an occupied territory, but I think that 2001, even before that, if I'm not correct,
mm-hmm.
there hasn't been any single problem there. And not only that, as capitalism rises there, there are a lot of connections, economical connections, and economical relations that we have with the West Bank.
Got it.
And I think in the situation in Ramallah and Birzeit prospering. The university is a wonderful university. There are a lot of people going there.
Yeah,
I think that's exactly what we're looking for. I think nobody wants to see that. That's what I think. Both in the West Bank, both the Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza, nobody wants their own kind to perish or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the Hamas, obviously, they're doing whatever they can in order to maintain power, because now Morsi knows that's one of the things that we understood, that the reason that Morsi came along and decided on ceasefire is because he knows that the Palestinians eventually are going to be fed up, exactly what happened with Mubarak 2 years ago.
So I want to continue talking about that, but someone named Dave who's listening to our conversation right now, they posted a conversation inside the text box. So do you want to just scroll down and read it and answer the question for Dave?
Yeah, no problem. What would a ground operation, permanent occupation? Oh, of course not. Okay, a ground operation, we had 2 years ago, we had the ironclad operation, or Ferretis operation. What we did there is we were looking for missiles and rocket safe houses. We were looking for headquarters of Hamas. We were looking for barracks. We were looking for training sites. This is the main goal we were looking for. And this is the only objectives that we had during the ironclad operation. We went there for 6 days, and the operation ended, and there's not a soldier there. Obviously, there's not going to be a permanent occupation. We're not going to occupy that land. We left that land in 2005, and we're not going to come back there.
Mm-hmm. But do you think that there's any real do you think that there's any? Okay, no, I guess that actually answers the question. I mean, because you're not looking, you don't think Israel is looking to permanently occupy that land ultimately.
Gaza never. We've been in the Gaza after the 6-day war in 1967. We had control over both the West Bank and Gaza Strip for 30 years, and a lot of people decided. I mean, the detachment that happened in 2005 was one of the major political disasters in Israel, not only because of the consequences, but mainly because of the people that there are a lot of Israelis living there.
Yep.
And there's a lot of Israelis living in a settlement at the West Bank, which is it's a different discussion, obviously, and I'm not going to go there. But after detaching from the Gaza Strip, obviously, we're not going to come back there. It's a nest of wasps.
Yeah.
That would be a suicide to go there, obviously. And we totally, and one of the reasons that we did the detachment is understanding the fact that the Palestinians want to reign their own. They want to govern themselves, and that was the reason why Sharon's government decided to detach.
So
for the better or for the worse.
So I want to ask you an important question that I've begun asking individuals. Do you think, first off, do you have any friends that are Arab or Palestinian inside of Israel?
Yep.
You do?
I have, not only that, I have a friend who's an Arab and he studies the RC as well.
And so
I think this is, I'm sorry?
Yeah, okay. So basically, knowing that you have some Arab and Palestinian friends, do you think that Hamas...
You're kind of disappearing?
Do you think that Hamas is representative of the Palestinian people?
Hamas is a representative of what?
Do you think that Hamas represents the Palestinian people fairly? And do you think so?
First of all, there's a huge difference between someone who's an Israeli Arab and a Palestinian, both in the West Bank and at the Gaza Strip. Completely different. The Israeli Arabs are a regular citizen, just like Ethiopians, just like all of the other Israelis. There's no difference, and I'm not going to differentiate them.
Yeah.
I think Hamas is operating under a strict scrutiny. The reason that they're looking for a way to rather cluster 1.5 million people that are stationed. Well, they're stationed at Gaza where nobody wants to take them now, and obviously they're not the best form of government, and in a lot of ways they're torturing their own people, and that was kind of the problem. I think in a lot of ways the answer to your question was no. I think they're not representing, and the problem is I don't want to just say they're not representing. I want to come with a different solution. What we could see from the West Bank, Abu Mazen, even though a lot of political differences, I think Abu Mazen is trying his best to
who is
govern.
That? Who is that?
And Abu Mazen is the leader of the Ashraf, the West Bank. He's the governor of the West Bank, of the Palestinians of the West Bank.
Okay. And so does Hamas have no dealings with the people of the West Bank and strictly only Gaza?
Strictly only Gaza, yeah.
Really? Okay.
Now, they're completely different entities.
Yeah.
Completely different entities. And the reason for that is the people of the West Bank, in a lot of ways, are connected to Jordan because they're on the border of Jordan. And there are a lot of people that are coming to the West Bank, and there's a lot of transfer from the West Bank to Israel. It's a lot easier. There are a lot of passages from the West Bank to Israel, and there's obviously it's organized with the security forces. You're talking about both the intelligence and police, but there's a lot of transfer from the West Bank to Israel. A lot of people that are living in the West Bank are working in Israel, and vice versa. It's not happening with the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, that's really because of the Gaza there.
Wait,
and I think
one second. Coming right back. 1 second. Just closing my door.
No problem.
Yeah, so continue with that last point.
No problem. Yeah. I think it's all happening with Hamas. I think there's one of the reasons. One of the ceasefire was a couple of things. One of them was to open the Rafiq passage. The Rafiq passage is a passage from Gaza Strip to Egypt, and the Egyptians decided to close that. I think roughly 3 or 4 years ago, and it's rather obvious. They were completely terrified that a lot of terrorists are going to penetrate Egypt. As you could see last year, there were 12 Egyptian policemen that were slaughtered by terrorist groups coming from the Gaza Strip.
When was that? When did that occur?
That occurred 1.5 years ago.
And they were Israeli police officers?
No, Egyptians.
Oh, Egyptian police officers.
Yeah.
And they were killed by some of the...
The reason I'm saying that, they were killed by a terrorist group. And they were killed by a terrorist group that was coming from the Gaza Strip. They were either Taliban or Al-Qaeda. I'm not so sure which one they were. I can look for that. But the reason why I'm saying that is because the Hamas is living under a tiny land that nobody wants to help them. I mean, a lot of the Palestinians are looking for different other ways, other place to live, and nobody's willing to accept them. The Egyptians are not willing to accept them, as well as other Arab lands. And that was one of the things that we were looking for. We were looking for different solutions for them. Obviously, they're living in a huge cluster, and obviously it's not the best solution. And a lot of the people at the Gaza Strip are looking for a different place and different ways to live.
Yeah,
I believe that either it would be the Hamas like having like a 360-degree change, or any other regime. What they would have to look for, and they would have to decide, is ways to diminish at least by half the amount of people living there and open diplomatic relations with other Arab lands that can move some of the population there.
Got it. So, I mean, what is your feeling about how, a lot of the major media, corporate media, such as like, NBC or BBC, different, major media outlets, what is your opinion, or how does it make you feel that they don't report a lot of the information that you're sharing, right now?
The New York Times, the Times, CNN, BBC, The Guardian. When I was in the information room, the operation room, I was doing a lot of research, and unfortunately, not only I wasn't able to see reporting, but the main slogans was Israel keeps on bombarding Gaza Strip for the 5th day, for the 6th day, for the 7th day. And it was obviously completely one-sided, up until the point that there was a group that was formed to boycott CNN in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it to be rather unfortunate. I understand the fact that media is only existing in order to sell, and it's a story. But I believe in a lot of ways I would read, but it's a bit long, the pamphlet that they wrote to the CEO of CNN. A media is, as well as being an entertainment form, especially a news channel as large and as successful as CNN and BBC, is in a lot of ways forced to stay with facts and state them.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's something that will be completely uneven and unequal is wrongful doing. Not only for us, I think for the channel as well. Because I'm thinking, if that's something that I would supposed to rely upon, if there's something I know for a fact that isn't true, it's something that's kind of making me lose faith in media.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think that was very well said. So one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up is because that's one of the reasons why I've created Vonvo, which is basically we're looking to provide an alternative where citizens have a voice and can share the different facts of what's going on around these really important stories. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that. What I guess I would say next is, it's more recent news, and give me your thoughts on it. Egypt obviously played a major role in this ceasefire.
Definitely.
What do you think about the different riots that have occurred in Egypt against their new president, Morsi, or whatever, I forget his name exactly. But what do you think about those riots that have been occurring in Egypt about
Morsi? Yeah, Mohammed Morsi.
Morsi, yeah. What do you think about the riots that have occurred, saying that he's like a dictator and all this stuff? What are your thoughts on that?
It's rather interesting. I just read the article like an hour and a half ago. That's something that's rather there was seen a lot in Egypt and in a lot of Arab countries as well. There in the past 2 years, riots against the governor, against the prime minister, against the president, saying he's a dictator, and that's rather obvious. I mean, I understand the fact that after Mubarak was dethroned and almost decapitated.
Yeah.
I think that Mohammed Morsi, when he gained power, when he rose to power, I think he tried to enter a different form of regime. I think he was trying to speak to the people, from the people, and I think in a lot of ways it's trying to achieve something that's a bit greater than Egypt itself. That was a bit. I'm gonna go to a different place just for a second to understand explain my point. Erdogan, the prime minister of Turkey, did roughly exactly the same thing. He was looking for more than just control over Turkey. He was looking to govern in a theoretical way over the Arab world, meaning Turkey and Egypt and Syria and Lebanon and Jordan and and uh, and um, and Morocco as well. Now, I
Uh-huh.
think in a lot of ways, Morsi being a new governor, being a new prime minister, is looking to establish his power in the area. He wants to dance under both weddings. He wants to be the compassion strategist, diplomat, causing a ceasefire after operation, and at the same note, he wants to regain power in order to show both the people in Egypt as well as the Arab world as a whole that his boss is sheriff, and people should not just listen to what he has to say, but he's after them as well. I think in a lot of ways, after what happened in Jordan and what happened in Morocco and what happened in Libya as well, I think he's looking for diplomatic relations there, and I think he's looking to stretch his reach to that area. And
Got
I'm
it.
not surprised, by the way. I think that he's going to find some clever diplomatical solution with all the people that are writing there. I think it's not really difficult. I think rights is something that it's becoming more and more fashionable. I think it's kind of reminding me of the 70s in the States
Uh-huh.
with all the Woodstock and the war in Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
Tahrir became a symbol of not just hope in Egypt. Tahrir is the place where the rights are being held.
Mhm.
It's becoming a
Yeah,
symbol
Tahrir Square.
in a lot of ways. The hope for the citizen of actually having a power to change the regime. I was going to work for them. I don't believe that Mubarak was really doing a bad job, and I think, unfortunately, the riots against Morsi are not going to be successful for them, but I can only hope for them.
Okay. So how about we turn? I want to obviously, a lot of what my website Vonvo is all about is, objective discussions and, kind of really taking both sides. I think that's understandable,
Yeah,
right? Um,
definitely.
yeah, and I think that's really important. So, I've been doing some reading up on certain things relating to the Palestinians, and I'd love to get your take on it. Um, you know, I've done a bunch of reading about how there are a lot of security checkpoints and roadblocks. Not even just around the Gaza and West Bank border, but also within the actual internal sections of the country. And I
Yeah,
wanted to find out what is your opinion on that, because a lot of Palestinians say that they're not really able to live just like how you guys aren't really living a normal life. It disrupts them from living a normal life because of that sort of stuff. Do you hear that as well?
obviously. First of all, I totally agree. But that's unfortunately something that we can see all over the world. I was at Croatia 3 years ago, and there was it was a huge war in 1991 when Yugoslavia was separated into 7 countries. There was a huge war as well between Yugoslavia and between Croatia and Montenegro. What happened was when I drove Croatia to Montenegro, there was a traffic jam of 7.5 hours, and the only reason for that is because one of the security guards was Croatia, and one of the drivers was from Montenegro, and the security guard served at the war, and he still had bad taste from all days, so he decided to open up the car completely, and he took up the fabric, and he took up the seats, and he took up everything he could from the car,
Hmm.
completely detached the car, and to say it was a bad decision, to say that it's inhumane, I agree in a lot of ways. The problem is, what's the reason that we're doing that, and what's the reason that it's conducted? I think it's similar in a lot of ways to the story Wolf Wolf. I
Hmm.
think after one time and after like several times that there was a security check and there was a bombing occurring, when we understood in a lot of ways that after having strict security checks, we can actually reduce the number of casualties on both sides. Because what happens is whenever there's a bombing, there's always a retaliation. It's always happening.
Yeah.
So bombing is bad for both sides.
Yep.
So if we can actually reduce the numbers of bombing happening, if we can actually doing that by merely straightening out the security checks, it's beneficial in a lot of ways to both sides.
Okay.
What would be better for that? I'll tell you what. I understand that, and in the West Bank, by the way,
yeah,
it's a lot easier now. If you're driving now on a private vehicle, it's really similar to someone who's driving to the airport. If I'm driving to the airport, even if it is an Israeli who served in the military, I'm going to have a security check. And the same thing is going to happen if I'm driving to the West Bank as well. If I'm going to visit a friend in the settlement, I'm going to have a security check happening there. Obviously, if I'm in Iraq, I'm going to have a stricter. Obviously, I understand. But I believe it's something in a lot of ways, it's a necessity. Hopefully, utopia talking, the day that we're going to have a couple of years without any security threats, I believe that the security checking would be lowered or even eliminated completely. Hopefully.
Okay. So ultimately, I mean, I guess what I'm kind of hearing from you is that any sort of solutions that can, prevent the terrorism from occurring and allow them to live normally, you're fine with, right? You're totally fine with, as long as it's resulting in peace and no missiles being shot at you, right?
One of the problems, first of all, I totally agree. That's the goal for all of us. Okay. Nobody wants to see casualties on either side. The problem is that there was a solution that was accumulating. There was two lands for two nations. One of the reasons that we were afraid of is if there would be a land, if there would be a country, a Palestinian country in the West Bank, then whenever something would happen, whenever there would be a security threat,
mm-hmm.
we would be forced to start a war there. And that would be something that would be potentially devastating to the fabric, the diplomatic fabric of the world.
Yeah.
Meaning, if the Russians are to support the new Palestinian state, and the state and Britain and France would continue supporting Israel, I'm afraid, and a lot of people are afraid as well, that it might grow to something bigger. Obviously, the problem in the West Bank is affecting a lot more just than Israel and Palestine.
Yeah. What is let's go on to a different issue that I think matters to plenty of Palestinians.
Yeah.
What is your take on the settlements that have been built on top of what's considered, by international law, Palestinian lands? Do you think that is right or correct?
Do you remember the name, by the way? It's going to be a lot of help for me if you would say the name.
Of this, I was referring to the...
Do you remember the name of the settlement?
I don't have any specific names. I'm kind of just talking about...
Okay, no problem.
You're
talking about theoretically. Okay, listen. What happened was...
Do you know
settlement that...
Do you know which ones I'm referring to? Just settlements in general, right?
Okay, yeah, obviously.
Okay.
Now, you're talking about the settlements started occurring after 1967. 1967 was the 6 Days War. And as a result of that war, we seized land in the Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, the Sinai, and the West Bank as well. Now, under the international law, we're talking about Geneva Convention. I think we're talking about the fourth Geneva Convention, which regulates wartime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're talking about actually operating under a military regime there, and that was one of the things that's happening in the West Bank since 1967. Now, you're talking about Palestinian land. Unfortunately, though, there was never a Palestinian land, meaning in order to obtain a land, you need a couple of things. One of them is to have it regulated and governed. The second thing is, and that is obviously, by the way, the reason why a lot of people decide that the settlements and the West Bank belongs to the Palestinians is in a lot of ways problematic. I'll tell you why. Because it belonged to Jordan, belonged to Jordan, and we after fighting with Jordan at the 6 Days War, when they flew back to when we flew back to the Transjordan, to the west side of the Jordan River, the West Bank was terra rossa in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Meaning
I guess
there was a land. Sorry.
I guess what I'm really just interested in it, and I think because I want to over the over the next conversations that I have, it could be with you or other Israelis that I've been speaking to, and just so you know, we're going to be having some Arabs and Palestinians hopefully appear on Vonvo and share their side of the story. But what I want to just kind of know is like if Israelis and Jews are going to build these really nice settlements on what's technically considered Palestinian land. Yes or no? Do you think it's right? And if you're gonna build the settlements there, do you think Palestinians should be allowed to live inside these really nice, built out homes as well?
First of all, obviously, I believe in a lot of ways that it's same thing that happened. I'm a law student. It happens a lot of times. I'm reading a lot of verdicts that Arabs were looking for Israeli Arabs were looking to live in Israeli villages and Israeli settlements. It's a difficult concept on a cultural level. One of the things was on a social level, people want to live on close to people that look like them, talk like them, and sound like them. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why groups are forming. And that was one of the reasons why people don't want to live, why potentially Jews don't want to live next to Arabs, Arabs don't want to live next to Jews, regardless of the dispute.
Yep.
And for me, obviously I wouldn't be bothered by Arabs living in settlement, but that's something neither side want.
Yep.
I have Arabs living in my city as well. I have Arabs studying with me at school. They're here. We're here as well. They're here as well. I've never found it to be problematic. Obviously, there's always discussions over and debate over what's right and what's not. And at wartime, it's a huge problem. Obviously, It's a huge problem. And I could already see it in my school as well. The Arabs there were really frustrated by this reaction to the war.
Yep. So
now I'll address the first question. First of all, you said about the is that a right thing to for Israelis to build settlements over Palestinian land?
Yeah.
I think that's a really difficult.
It's a difficult question to answer, right?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer. I'll tell you what. Because first of all, as I already said, I believe international law-wise, there hasn't been an established right over the Palestinian. The only right, the Israelis' right over the land, was accumulated during the 6 Days War.
Yeah.
And the area is under military regime. That was one of the things. When the area is under military regime, that is the international. That's the international law control that the Israelis seized over that area. Meaning, after that, potentially the only people that could actually claim control over that area is Jordan.
Yep.
Palestine was never considered an entity under the United Nations or even under the international law. Okay.
Now, our viewer, David, he's posted another question within the text chat. Would you mind addressing that next question as well?
He says, sorry, but why can't Israel work with Abbas to get rid of Hamas long term? Too much Iranian interest. Oh my God. Well, if only, my friend. We have with Abbas, and by Abbas he means Mahmoud Abbas, which is Abu Mazen. We have a lot more addressing issues with Abu Mazen. To find a proper solution to coexist, between Israel and the West Bank is a lot more dressing for Abu Mazen as a governor of the West Bank, and it's really difficult for him to get rid of Hamas, or at least that he's trying. What do you mean? At least what he's trying?
Yeah.
So at least he's trying. I guess so. By the way, I believe that an Arab governor or an Arab prime minister or an Arab figure would have to be almost moronic in order to try to fight with another Arab leader. The problem is that a lot of people in the West Bank are sympathizing with the people at Gaza. And Abu Mazen knows that. And Abu Mazen knows that if he's to do anything to the leaders at the West Bank, he's entering a danger zone.
Yeah.
And probably it's not going to be a good idea for him. And probably the only one that's actually going to have enough power to get rid of Hamas from Gaza Strip is Morsi.
Who is Morsi? That's Egypt,
sorry,
right?
Egypt, yeah.
Yep.
Prime Minister of Egypt. I believe that he's the only one who actually has the power for that. And I suppose in a lot of ways only time will tell. Abu Mazen is not strong enough, especially in comparison to Morsi. He's not strong enough in order to get rid of Hamas. He's still trying to establish his power within his own people.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting.
He said another question. That's because you mentioned that you think he's going to... No, he asks another thing because you mentioned he's doing a fair job. Abu Mazen, I don't know. I mean, without me being Palestinian living in the West Bank, I can't say. I can't say if he's doing a good job for the Palestinians. I know that the economical situation in the West Bank has flourished since 2000, and I believe the diplomatical relations with the West Bank, hasn't deteriorated under his regime. I don't know if it's a good job. I think he's not worse. There's been worse than he is, but I'm not sure if he's doing a good job. I haven't seen him working hard, looking for a peace treaty.
Yeah, it looks like Dave's joined us. What's going on, Dave?
Hey, did you hear me? I'm on Chrome.
No. Would you mind leaving Chrome and do a different browser? Because your sound's coming in weird. Do you have a different browser?
No.
I can't hear him, by the way.
Yeah.
I can't.
One second. Maybe we have a bug on Chrome that, I mean, every once in a while it comes back. It's part of the technology we're using. But I'll ask him if he could just maybe go back to. I would click exit Vonvo, Dave, and try a different browser. One second, Yahel. So Yahel, what I was going to just say is, and I mean, if Dave can come back through a different browser, then that'll be great. What I was going to say, I was going to kind of wrap up, relatively soon. But if Dave wants to continue talking, then we definitely want to have him continue speaking. One second.
I have to apologize, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I have to apologize. I might gonna have to wrap up soon as well.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind doing that again tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, you would be interested in coming back?
I don't mind at all, honestly. The problem is I have a test tomorrow morning. I need to I have 3 books that I need to finish by tonight.
I got you. I know what that's like.
Completely disgusting ones as well.
No problem. So you know what? Why don't I end with this one last question, and we'll try getting in touch with Dave, so that he can maybe participate tomorrow. which would be great.
Pleasure.
And we're speaking with 2 more Israelis tomorrow, so that would be awesome if you wanted to join.
With pleasure.
Yeah, that'd be great. What I was going to say, and it looks like David's back. I don't know if he's on a different browser. Let me just ask him quickly. Let's see if he's on a different browser.
Yeah, guys.
Hey, you hear us, Dave?
Yes.
Awesome. You're coming in much more clear now.
I hear you have to wrap up, so I'll let you do it. It's
Do you have any other? Ask him. I'll let you take the last question, David, if you want. That's fine.
Well, I'll just clarify my question earlier. It was not saying that necessarily Abbas was doing a good job in with Gaza, I guess. It was more of a follow-up to what you said about him trying to...
Is he talking?
Yeah. Do you hear him, Yahel?
No.
I'll say what he was just clarifying your point about your remarks relating to Abbas and whether or not he was being a fair leader. Correct, David?
It was more about whether it was
Oh,
about...
I'm here now.
Oh, he hears you now.
You hear, Yahel?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, to labor on this, but it was about you saying earlier that you thought he was at least trying to keep the peace, or that he was at least trying to broker a deal maybe between the parties. I was just wondering whether he could actually be a true answer in this. But when you answered it correctly, I mean, appropriately, I thought what you said about Morsi was absolutely correct. Whether anything's going to happen, we'll see, especially with these new protests regarding his executive.
Yeah. Right, he's back. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So, Yahel, I'll leave you with one last question that I kind of ask everyone that comes on to Vonvo to kind of answer.
Yeah.
And we'll end it at that, and we'll try and reconnecting tomorrow as well. What message would you like to share with the world and anyone who were to be watching this video any a week from now or whenever?
Wonderful. Yeah. I think one of the major things, and I think that's one of the major benefits that Vonvo has to offer, is actually the opportunity to have a complete, full, open, hardly discussion over grave things that actually matter. And I would very much love any Arab or anyone with different views to have a conversation, to come, ask, talk, approach, or write, whatever it is. I think that's probably the only solution that we have. And after seeing what happened in the past 2-3 years, both in the Arab lands as well as Israel, that I believe that people is the only solution that we have. I think the leaders were unsuccessful for decades, and I think the solution is going to come from us. So
that's great.
I'm welcoming anyone.
Very well said. All right, so why don't we let you get back to your studies. Dave, thanks for joining in here to participate. That was awesome. And I'll let you know. Yeah, Yahel, we'll definitely set up another time to get another conversation going, and we have another one tomorrow, I believe, at 1 p.m. with some students in Israel. All right?
Sounds awesome. We'll keep it up tomorrow. Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.